Hello everyone, today I will be reviewing Gamoto's Guitarler controller. A brief introduction, this is a Guitar Freaks Arcade replica USB controller specially built for Guitar Freaks players who want to enjoy the arcade experience at home. Games currently supported are Guitadora PC trial version, DTX Mania, and the Mame Simulator. They are currently working on the PS2 support, which is said to be available by this year. Alright, before I begin, just some disclaimers. First, I actually ordered the controller on the first day of sales, but shortly after that, they offered me a refund for giving them an honest review in return. Second, I'm just a Go name Guitar Freaks player, and not the top tier Rainbow name or 9000 skill point player. My opinions and judgment on the controller are purely based on my own skills and feedback from my Guitar Freaks friends who have already tried the controller. Let's begin. Since this is an arcade replica, I will compare it with the actual controller, which I have it right here. At first look, the proportion and the size of the controller are extremely similar, but of course there are still slight differences in the design and the shape. The buttons and the pick, which are the most important parts, looks totally the same, which is good. The grooves on the buttons are also present. I've also dismantled the controller to look at the pick assembly, and the mechanism are also the same. The only significant difference is the switches used for the buttons. According to my friend, the arcade button uses Sanwa Customs and the Guitarler uses KO Box switches, so they do feel different. On the controller body, you will see these two select and start button, which doesn't exist on the arcade controller. You can map them as your start button in-game so that you don't have to press the keyboard to start a song. Pretty convenient. At the back, there's the USB cable compartment, making cable management very easy when not in use. When the controller is in use, there's this little gap here to slot in the cable, allowing the compartment to be fully closed. The weight is actually about the same compared to the white cabinet arcade controller. There are actually metal pieces inside the controller to match with the arcade controller's weight. This is extremely important because if the controller is too light, it may move about too much when you are doing heavy strumming and therefore affects the precision of your fretting hand. Alright, let's move on to the unboxing. As I am one of the first people to receive the controller, I totally have no idea how the box will look like before I receive it. I was actually quite surprised how nice and premium the box is. So in the box there are 3 other items beside the controller: the instruction manual, the guitar strap, and a circuit board with kill switches built in. The strap is an actual guitar strap with the DJ DAO logo on it. And for the circuit board switches, it can be KO Box brown or gold. From what I know, the new badges of Guitarler will have the gold switches installed in default, and the extra set provided will be the brown switches. The controller itself is USB plug and play. It is recommended to connect the USB cable directly to the PC motherboard. Using the USB hub is not recommended. Before you plug in and start playing, please update the controller to the latest firmware. This is extremely important. I think some of you have already watched my test stream on September and have a rough idea of how the Guitarler performs in gameplay. However, that was before the firmware update, and back then I was having unexplained random misses in game, and I was unsure if it's just me or the controller's problem. And turns out it is the controller's problem, and this firmware update solves it. The firmware was released in mid-October and it fixes the misfiring problem when you're strumming the pick. The update also provides 4 different sensitivity levels of wheeling for you to choose. Sensitivity 14 is recommended. The earlier firmware update on September fixes the button mapping for Guitadora PC trial and allows wheeling to be in button mode or the XYZ axis mode. So please do not forget to update the firmware after you have received your controller. Next, I will be showing a quick footage on how to dismantle the controller and change into the spare set of circuit board switches. Alternatively, you can also visit DJ DAO's tutorial website and follow the guide. You will need a Phillips screwdriver and a 2.5mm hexagon socket screwdriver. First, loosen the 2 screws at the strap position using the hexagon screwdriver. Next, remove the screws at the back of the controller body. Then lift up the body casing. Unplug the 5-pin USB cable and loosen the line clip. After that, remove the screws on the neck section and remove the neck casing. Remove the gyroscope PCB and the 4 screws on the shaft PCB. Take out the shaft PCB and remove the 6-pin wire. Remove the keycaps and the 10 limit blocks. Install the keycaps and the 10 limit blocks to the other shaft PCB. Make sure the 5 keycaps are the same height. Plug in the 6-pin wire and install the shaft PCB. Remove the wire harness on the original PCB and install it on the new PCB. Put the gyroscope PCB and the wire back in place. Finally, put back all the casing, the 5-pin USB cable and the screws in, and you're done. Alright, here's some gameplay footages. You may want to take note of the correct key settings for each game. Here are the key settings for Guitadora PC trial version. If you're unsure on how to do the mapping, you may want to refer to my walkthrough video in the description. Alright, let's move on to DTX Mania. Here are the key settings for DTX Mania AL. There are actually many different Guitar Freaks simulator that are available, but currently I highly recommend DTX Mania AL version 064 because it supports holding notes and processes the key sounds way better than other versions. And so here are my thoughts about the Guitarler after playing it for more than 12 hours. Comparing with the arcade controller, first of all, I'm extremely satisfied with the quality, especially with the pick, which I feel is really arcade quality. For the buttons, as I have mentioned earlier on, the switches used are different from the arcade controller. The arcade controller's Sanwa switches are custom made by Konami, so it can't be helped that they are different, and the only way is to play more and get used to them. The misfiring problem from the pick has been solved after the firmware update, so in my opinion, the controller is close to perfect. I'll definitely recommend this controller to serious players and also to those who are waiting for the Guitadora PC to launch officially. The next thing I'm going to talk about is the sound produced from the controller. From my personal experience, the sound produced from the pick can be quite loud depending on how strong you strum. This isn't a problem in the arcade because the music volume can drown the sound of the pick, whereas at home where your music volume is much lower, the sound of the pick may drown out the music instead. So there's a chance that you may strum softer than what you usually do in the arcade and ends up affecting your performance. Therefore, I highly recommend that you use your headphones or earphones when you're playing, especially if you're a heavy strummer. The last thing I'm going to talk about is the position of the start and select button on the controller body. If you're a heavy strummer, in other words, if your hand movement is huge when you strum, you may accidentally activate these two buttons. So I would advise you not to map the escape or the high speed change keys to these two buttons. Alright, so that's all for this video. Thank you so much for watching, and do share this video to people who think you might be interested in the Guitarler. See you and take care.